The only sound in my garage at 2 in the morning was the steady drip of oil from the Cessna's engine block onto the concrete floor. Each drop echoed like a countdown timer in the silence, marking time until my world would completely fall apart. I'd been working on this bird for 3 weeks straight, trying to keep my hands busy and my mind off the fact that my wife Marla hadn't touched me in 2 months. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. If she's working late again tonight, I'm the damn tooth fairy, I muttered to myself, wiping grease from my hands with a shop rag that had seen better decades. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, fixing other people's flying machines while my own marriage was crashing and burning. I'm Colton Reeves, 40 years old, and I've been keeping aircraft in the sky for the better part of 20 years. It's honest work, the kind where you can see the results of your labor. When I fix something, it stays fixed. Unlike marriages, apparently. The house was dark when I finally trudged inside, boots heavy on the kitchen linoleum. Marla's BMW wasn't in the driveway, which meant she was still at her emergency client meeting that had started at 6 p.m. Right. Emergency tax consultation at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Sure thing, sweetheart. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and settled into my recliner. The one Marla always complained made the living room look working class. Well, that's what I am, honey. Working class and proud of it. I fix things that matter. I keep people safe in the sky. The front door slammed at 2:47 a.m. I know because I was staring at the clock, nursing my third beer and wondering when exactly my wife had become a stranger. Jesus, Colton, you scared me, Marla said, jumping when she saw me sitting in the dark. Her hair was messed up, lipstick gone, and her blouse was wrinkled in ways that don't happen from sitting at a desk. Emergency client meeting run late? I asked, keeping my voice level. She didn't meet my eyes. You know how it is with tax season approaching. People panic about their finances. Must be some panic. Your phone's been going straight to voicemail since 9. The battery over. She was already heading toward the stairs. I'm exhausted. Don't wait up tomorrow night either. I've got another late appointment. That's when something inside me snapped. Not violently, not dramatically. Just a quiet, final click, like a circuit breaker flipping off. Marla, I said, and something in my tone made her freeze on the third step. From now on, I decide when we spend money together. She turned around, and for the first time in months, I had her full attention. What's that supposed to mean? It means exactly what I said. You decide when we spend nights together. I decide when we spend money together. Her face went pale, then red. You can't be serious. Absolutely serious. Sleep tight, sweetheart. She stormed upstairs, and I heard our bedroom door slam hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat back in my chair and smiled for the first time in weeks. Game on. The next morning, I was up before dawn, making calls. First to the bank, then to the credit card companies, then to our insurance agent. Amazing how much authority a husband still has over joint accounts when he's got his wife's social security number and knows her mother's maiden name. By the time Marla stumbled downstairs at 8:30, looking like she'd been hit by a cargo plane, I'd already frozen every joint account we had. Morning, sunshine, I said cheerfully, flipping pancakes. Coffee's fresh. She grabbed her purse and pulled out her wallet, then her phone. I watched her try 3 different cards at our kitchen table, each one getting declined. Her face went through a fascinating range of expressions: confusion, disbelief, then pure rage. Colton, what did you do? I told you last night. I'm deciding when we spend money together. Apparently, we're not spending much time together lately, so... I shrugged and flipped another pancake. You can't do this. Those are my accounts, too. Were. Past tense. Funny thing about joint accounts. Either party can freeze them pending a review of unusual activity. And honey, your spending patterns have been very unusual lately. She was shaking now, whether from fury or panic, I couldn't tell. This is financial abuse. This is consequences. You want to live like you're single, you can budget like you're single. The doorbell rang. Marla and I stared at each other. We weren't expecting anyone, and it was barely 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. I'll get it, I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I opened the front door to find a man I'd never seen before. Tall, athletic build, perfectly styled brown hair, wearing scrubs under a leather jacket. He had the kind of confident smile that probably made women swoon and made husbands want to punch something. "Hi, is Marla here?" he asked. "I'm Eli. She said to pick her up at 9 for our—" He stopped talking when he got a good look at me. "Oh, are you the husband?" I said pleasantly. "And you are?" Behind me, I heard Marla's sharp intake of breath. I work with Marla, at the clinic. I mean, she consults for us, tax stuff." He was backing away from the door now, but I stepped forward, keeping pace. "Funny thing," I said, still smiling. "Marla works for Dorian and Associates. They do individual tax prep, not medical consulting." Eli's face went white. "I should go." "Oh, don't leave on my account. Marla," I called over my shoulder. "Your client is here." But when I turned around, Marla was gone. I could hear her car starting in the garage. "Looks like your appointment just got canceled," I told Eli. "But hey, thanks for clearing something up for me." I closed the door in his face and went back to my pancakes, whistling. 3 days later, I was sitting in the hangar, our local dive bar, with my sister Vicky and my buddy Curtis, laying out everything I'd discovered. The hangar was the kind of place where mechanics, construction workers, and other honest folks came to complain about their lives over cheap beer and decent wings. The walls were covered with old aviation photos, and the bartender, Sal, had been pouring drinks there since before I was born. "So let me get this straight," Vicky said, stubbing out her cigarette in the ashtray. "My sister was a nurse at the county hospital, 5 years younger than me, and had never liked Marla. Your wife's been screwing some physical therapist, and you caught him coming to pick her up at your house?" "That's the gist of it," I said, taking a swig of my beer. "Guy's name is Eli Harmon, runs a clinic downtown called Peak Performance Physical Therapy." Curtis, who was working on his 4th beer despite it only being 7 p.m., shook his head. "Man, that's rough. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to destroy them both," I said quietly. "Methodically, completely, and legally." Vicky raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like you, Colt. You're usually more of a punch first, ask questions later kind of guy." That was the old me. The new me thinks before he acts. See, I've been doing some research on Mr. Eli Harmon. I pulled out a manila folder I'd been carrying. Turns out he's got quite a reputation around town. I opened the folder and spread out printed pages across the sticky bar table. Bank records show Marla's been paying for hotel rooms twice a week for the past 4 months. Always the same place, Riverview Motel on Highway 9, classy joint. Curtis whistled low. "How'd you get bank records?" "Joint account, remember? I have every right to review our statements, and look at this." I pointed to another printout. Credit card charges at Victoria's Secret, fancy restaurants, a weekend getaway to Portland. All on days when she told me she was working late. "Jesus, Colt," Vicky said, scanning the papers. "She really wasn't trying to hide it, was she?" "Gets better. I installed some monitoring software on our home computer. Turns out Marla's been deleting her browser history, but the software captures everything." I pulled out another stack of papers. Email exchanges with Eli going back 6 months, and I mean detailed exchanges. I handed Vicky a few pages. She read for a minute, then her face turned red. "Oh my God, this is explicit." "Read the one dated last Tuesday out loud," I said. Vicky cleared her throat. "I can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Colton will be working late on that plane so we can have the whole evening. Wear those scrubs I like, the ones that show off your arms." Curtis nearly choked on his beer. "She wrote that?" "That's nothing. Check out Eli's response. Vicky kept reading. Can't stop thinking about last night. The way you moved, the sounds you made. Your husband has no idea what he's missing. Thursday can't come fast enough. The bar had gone quiet around us. Even Sal was listening from behind the bar. So what's the plan? Vicky asked, handing the papers back. Phase 1 was cutting off her money. She's been staying at Rhonda's house since yesterday, by the way. Her best friend from college. The one who always said Marla was too good for me. And Phase 2? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Phase 2 is where things get interesting. See, I did some digging on Mr. Eli Harmon. Turns out he's been playing doctor with more than just my wife. I pulled out another set of papers. 3 complaints filed with the state licensing board in the past 2 years. All from women who claimed he crossed professional boundaries during therapy sessions. Nothing was proven, but there's a pattern. Holy shit, Curtis said. This guy's a predator. That's what I'm thinking, and predators don't like it when their hunting grounds get exposed. I finished my beer and stood up. Tomorrow I'm going to have a little chat with Dr. Eli, man to man. Colt, Vicky said, grabbing my arm. Don't do anything stupid. Sister, I've never been smarter in my life. The next morning, I drove downtown to Peak Performance Physical Therapy. It was in one of those modern medical buildings, all glass and chrome, trying to look more expensive than it was. I walked in wearing my cleanest work shirt and jeans, carrying a small toolbox. The receptionist, a young woman with too much makeup and a name tag that said Brittany, looked up when I approached. Can I help you? Yeah, I'm here to see Eli Harmon. I've got an appointment. She checked her computer. I don't see any appointment under... What's your name? Colton Reeves. Maybe it's under my wife's name, Marla Reeves. Brittany's expression changed slightly. Oh, Mr. Harmon is with a patient right now. Can you wait? Sure thing. I sat in the waiting room for 20 minutes, watching Eli work with an elderly man on some kind of leg exercises. Through the glass partition, I could see him laughing, being charming, playing the part of the caring healthcare professional. He was good at it. I had to give him that. When the old man left, Eli walked over to the reception desk. Brittany, who's my next appointment? This gentleman says he has an appointment. Colton Reeves? I watched Eli's face go white. He recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. Mr. Reeves, he said, walking over with his hand extended. What can I do for you? I stood up but didn't shake his hand. We need to talk. Privately. He glanced around the waiting room. There were 3 other people sitting there, all pretending not to listen. Of course, let's go to my office. His office was small but neat, with diplomas on the wall and a desk covered with patient files. Eli closed the door and gestured to a chair, but I remained standing. So, he said, trying to maintain his professional demeanor. What brings you in today? Are you experiencing any pain or mobility issues? I opened my toolbox and pulled out a 12-inch adjustable wrench. Not to threaten him, just to have something to do with my hands. I started adjusting it, making it longer, then shorter, the metal clicking in the quiet room. Funny thing happened the other day, I said conversationally. My wife's been having some tension in her back, real tight muscles, keeping her up at night. Eli was sweating now. Back pain can be very challenging to treat. Oh, she's been getting treatment, regular treatment, twice a week for months. Click, click went the wrench. Riverview Motel has excellent therapeutic facilities, apparently. Mr. Reeves, I think there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I pulled out one of the printed emails and set it on his desk. That's your email address, right? elihptegmail.com? He didn't look at the paper. I think you should leave. I think you should read that email, out loud. I'm not going to... I bent the wrench slightly, and it made a sharp metallic sound. Eli jumped. I fix things for a living, I said quietly. Planes, mostly, but I can fix other things too. Cars that won't start, reputations that get damaged, knees that stop working properly. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining my skill set. See, when a plane breaks down, people fade, so I take my work very seriously. I'm very thorough, very careful, and I always finish the job. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through some photos. This is my wife's car in the parking lot of your clinic last Thursday. And this is a timestamp from the Riverview Motel showing a room rented in your name the same day. Same time. Eli sat down heavily in his chair. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to stop seeing my wife. You're going to stop calling her, texting her, emailing her. You're going to pretend she doesn't exist. And if I don't? I smiled and put the wrench back in my toolbox. Then I'm going to send copies of these emails to the state licensing board, along with photos, timestamps, and a detailed complaint about how you've been using your position as a healthcare provider to seduce vulnerable married women. You can't prove anything. Maybe not in court, but I don't need to prove anything in court. I just need to prove it to your boss, your patients, and your professional licensing board. Think they'll want to take any chances with a therapist who's been playing doctor with his clients' wives? I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Eli? My wife might not have told you, but I've got a lot of friends in this town. Mechanics, construction workers, guys who fix things. Word gets around fast in our circles. Might want to find a new place to get your car serviced. I left him sitting there, staring at the email on his desk. Phase 2 was complete. 2 weeks later, everything had gone to hell. I was sitting in the hangar again, but this time, I was alone. Curtis hadn't returned my calls in 3 days, and Vicky had stopped by the house just long enough to tell me I was going too far and that she needed some space to think. Turned out, Marla had been busy. She'd spent the past 2 weeks playing the victim, telling anyone who would listen that I was financially abusing her and stalking her boyfriend. She'd painted herself as the innocent wife whose controlling husband had snapped when she tried to find a little happiness. And people were buying it. The story she was telling was simple and effective. She'd been unhappy in our marriage for years. She'd started seeing a therapist, Eli, to work through her problems. I'd become suspicious and jealous, interpreting innocent therapy sessions as an affair. When she'd tried to leave me, I'd frozen her out of our bank accounts and started harassing her therapist. It was bullshit, but it was believable bullshit. Another beer, Colt? Sal asked from behind the bar. Yeah, sure. The bar was nearly empty for a Thursday night. Usually the place would be packed with the after-work crowd, but I'd noticed people avoiding me lately. Conversations stopped when I walked into a room. Former friends crossed the street when they saw me coming. The door opened, and Curtis walked in with 2 guys I recognized from the construction crew that worked out of the lot next to my hangar. They saw me and hesitated. "Kurt," I called out, "come have a drink." He walked over, but his expression was cold. "Colt, where you been, buddy? I left you 3 messages." Curtis sat down, but the other 2 guys stayed standing. "We need to talk." "Okay, talk." Marla came by the shop yesterday. She was pretty upset. I took a sip of my beer. I bet she was. She said you've been harassing her, following her around town, threatening her boyfriend. Is that what she said? She had bruises on her arms, Colt. That got my attention. What kind of bruises? Like someone grabbed her, hard. I set down my beer and looked Curtis in the eye. You think I put hands on my wife? I don't know what to think anymore. The Colt I know wouldn't do that, but the Colt I know wouldn't freeze his wife out of their bank accounts either. The Colt you know wouldn't cheat on his wife with some smooth-talking physical therapist. But here we are. One of the construction guys, a big man named Dave, stepped forward. Maybe you should think about getting some help, Reeves. Anger management or something. Maybe you should mind your own business, Dave. It became my business when Marla showed up at our job site crying, asking if we knew somewhere safe she could stay. I stood up. Safe? Safe from what? From you, apparently. The bar had gone completely quiet. Even Sal had stopped washing glasses. Let me make something clear, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I have never laid a hand on my wife. Not once, not ever. If she's got bruises, she didn't get them from me. Then where'd they come from? Curtis asked. Good question. Maybe you should ask her boyfriend. Dave stepped closer. You're a piece of work, you know that? Your wife's scared to go home, and you're still trying to blame someone else. My wife is scared to go home because she knows I found out about her affair, and she knows I've got evidence that could ruin both her and her boyfriend's reputation. What evidence? Curtis asked. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photos I'd taken of the printed emails. This evidence. I showed them the screen. Curtis read for a minute, then handed the phone to Dave. Jesus Christ, Dave muttered. That's from 6 months ago, I said. There are dozens more just like it. My wife's been screwing around on me for half a year, and when I caught her, she decided to play victim. Curtis was staring at the phone. These are real? Real as it gets. Email headers, timestamps, the works. I've also got hotel receipts, credit card records, and photos of them together. The mood in the bar was shifting. I could feel it. Why didn't you show us this before? Curtis asked. Because I was trying to handle it quietly, keep it between me and them, but apparently quiet doesn't work with liars. Dave was still scrolling through the photos. This is pretty damning stuff, Colt. Yeah, well, the truth usually is. The door opened again, and Marla walked in with Rhonda and 2 women I didn't recognize. They saw me immediately, and I watched Marla's face go pale. Well, well, I said. Speak of the devil. Marla turned to leave, but Rhonda grabbed her arm. Don't run. You have every right to be here. Actually, she doesn't, Sal called out from behind the bar. This is a private establishment, and I reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. You can't be serious, Rhonda said. Absolutely serious. Colt's been drinking here for 15 years. Never caused any trouble, always pays his tab, tips well. You want to drink somewhere else tonight. This is discrimination. This is business. Get out. But Marla wasn't leaving. She was walking toward our table, and I could see she was working herself up for a scene. There he is, she announced to the bar. My loving husband, the man who's been stalking me and my therapist. Therapist? I laughed. Is that what we're calling him now? Eli has been helping me work through the trauma of being married to an abusive man. Trauma? The only trauma here is what you've been putting me through for 6 months. She was close enough now that I could see her face clearly. There were indeed bruises on her upper arms, finger-shaped marks that looked recent. Nice bruises, I said. Where'd you get them? You know exactly where I got them. Actually, I don't, because I haven't touched you in months. Haven't even been in the same room as you for more than 5 minutes since you moved in with Rhonda. Curtis was studying Marla's arms. Those look fresh, like yesterday fresh. That's because they are, Marla said. He grabbed me in the parking lot at the grocery store yesterday afternoon. Interesting, I said, pulling out my phone again. Because yesterday afternoon I was at the airport from noon until 8 p.m., working on a Piper Cherokee that belongs to Dr. Morrison. Want to see the work order? It's got timestamps. I showed her the phone. Signed in at 11:47 a.m., signed out at 8:23 p.m. 43 people saw me there, including Dr. Morrison himself, who stopped by around 4 to check on the progress. Marla's face was getting red. You're lying. Am I? Hey, Sal, call Dr. Morrison. His number's in the book. Ask him if I was working on his plane yesterday afternoon. That won't be necessary, said a voice from the door. We all turned to see Dr. Morrison himself walking into the bar, still wearing his golf clothes. Evening, Colt, he said. Heard my name being mentioned. Doc, perfect timing. Can you tell everyone here where I was yesterday afternoon? Dr. Morrison looked around the bar, taking in the tense atmosphere. You were working on my Cherokee, from about noon until well after 8. I remember because my wife called around 6, wondering when I'd be home for dinner, and you were still there when I left. The silence in the bar was deafening. "So," I said to Marla, "want to try again? Where'd you really get those bruises?" She was backing away now, Rhonda trying to pull her toward the door. "We're leaving," Rhonda announced. "Good idea," I said. "But Marla, next time you want to frame someone for domestic violence, make sure they don't have an alibi." After they left, the bar erupted in conversation. Curtis sat back down, looking stunned. "Colt, I'm sorry. I should have known better." "Yeah, you should have, but I get it. She's convincing when she wants to be." Dave was shaking his head. "So if you didn't give her those bruises, then someone else did. And I can think of only one person who's been spending time with her lately." Curtis's eyes widened. "You think her boyfriend?" "I think a lot of things. But I know one thing for sure. This isn't over." The next morning, I was in my hangar working on a Cessna 172 when Vicky showed up. She looked like she hadn't slept much. "We need to talk," she said. I kept working on the engine. "I figured you'd show up eventually." "Colt, what the hell is going on? Rhonda called me last night screaming about how you're trying to frame Marla for something. Rhonda's an idiot, always has been. Those bruises on Marla's arms weren't from me. Doc Morrison confirmed I was at the airport all day yesterday." Vicky sat down on a workbench. "Then where did they come from?" "Good question. Maybe you should ask Dr. Eli. You think he hit her?" I stopped working and looked at my sister. I think a guy who preys on vulnerable women in therapy sessions probably isn't above using physical intimidation when they don't do what he wants. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Vicky, I've got evidence that Marla's been cheating on me for months. Detailed evidence. But instead of just admitting it and asking for a divorce like an adult, she's decided to paint me as an abuser. Maybe she's scared. Of what? I've never raised a hand to her. Hell, I've barely raised my voice to her. Maybe she's scared of losing everything in a divorce. I considered that. Maybe. But that doesn't give her the right to destroy my reputation with lies." Vicky was quiet for a moment. "Show me the evidence." I pulled out my folder and spread the papers across the workbench. Vicky read through everything. The emails, the hotel receipts, the credit card statements, the photos. "Jesus, Colt, this is comprehensive. I'm thorough. These emails are pretty graphic." "Yeah, well, adultery tends to be," she kept reading. "Some of these are from last week, after you confronted them." "What do you mean?" She handed me a printout. "This one's dated 3 days ago. Can't wait to see you tonight. Bring that thing I like." "That's after you supposedly scared him off." I read the email more carefully. She was right. Snake. He's still seeing her. Looks like it. And look at this one from yesterday morning. She showed me another page. "Stop being so rough. Someone will notice the marks." I felt my pressure spike. He's hurting her. Looks that way. I started pacing around the hangar. She's protecting him. She'd rather accuse me of abuse than admit her boyfriend's the one putting hands on her. Why would she do that? Because admitting he's abusing her means admitting she left me for someone worse. It means admitting she made a mistake. Vicky folded up the papers. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to end this. Once and for all." That afternoon, I drove to Peak Performance Physical Therapy. But instead of going inside, I parked across the street and waited. At 5:30, Eli came out and got into his BMW. I followed him. He drove to the Riverview Motel, just like I expected. Room 237, just like the receipts showed. I parked where I could see his car and settled in to wait. At 6:15, Marla's Honda pulled into the parking lot. She got out, looked around nervously, then knocked on the door of room 237. I gave them 30 minutes, then I called the room. "Hello?" Eli's voice. "Room service," I said in a fake accent. "We didn't order room service. Complimentary champagne from the management." Very sorry for the inconvenience with the air conditioning yesterday. There was a pause. Okay, I guess. Room 237. Yes, sir. 5 minutes. I hung up and walked across the parking lot to their room. When Eli opened the door, wearing nothing but a towel, his face went white. Surprise? I said, pushing past him into the room. Marla was sitting on the bed in a bathrobe, and when she saw me, she screamed. Relax, I said. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here to talk. Get out, Marla shouted. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Call them. I'd love to explain to them what you two have been doing here twice a week for the past 6 months. Eli was trying to get dressed quickly. This is harassment. This is a conversation. See, I've been thinking about those bruises on my wife's arms, the ones she's been telling people I gave her. Colt, please, Marla said. Just leave us alone. Can't do that, sweetheart. See, you've been telling people I'm an abuser. That's defamation of character. It's also a lie. I pulled out my phone and started recording. So let's clear this up right now. Marla, did I give you those bruises on your arms? Yes. Interesting, because I have an alibi that says I was nowhere near you yesterday afternoon. So let me ask again. Did I give you those bruises? She was crying now. Stop it. Did I, Marla? No, she whispered. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. No, you didn't give me the bruises. Then who did? She looked at Eli, who was shaking his head frantically. Who gave you the bruises, Marla? It was an accident, she said. What kind of accident? It got rough and he grabbed me too hard. I turned the phone toward Eli. Is that true, Doc? You like it rough? This is illegal recording, he said. Actually, it's not. This is a one-party consent state, and I'm a party to this conversation. I kept the phone on him. Did you give my wife those bruises? It was consensual, he said. Consensual domestic violence. That's a new one. I turned back to Marla. So, let me get this straight. Your boyfriend roughed you up during closeness, left bruises on your arms, and instead of admitting that, you decided to blame me? She was sobbing now. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth. The truth would have made me look stupid. The truth would have made you look human. Lying about it makes you look like something else entirely. I stopped recording and put my phone away. Here's what's going to happen, I said. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call everyone you told that lie to, Curtis, Dave, Rhonda, whoever else, and you're going to tell them the truth. You're going to admit that I never touched you, and that you made the whole thing up to cover for your boyfriend's rough handling. I can't do that. You can and you will, because if you don't, I'm going to release this recording, along with all the emails, photos, and receipts I've collected over the past 6 months. I'm going to send them to your boss, his licensing board, and anyone else who might be interested. Eli stepped forward. You're blackmailing us. I'm offering you a choice. Tell the truth voluntarily, or have it exposed involuntarily. Your call. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Marla? I'm filing for divorce on Monday. You can keep your boyfriend, but you're not keeping half my assets, not after what you've put me through. I left them there and drove home, feeling better than I had in months. The game was almost over. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent the weekend preparing for what I knew would be the final confrontation. Marla had not called anyone to recant her story. I'd checked with Curtis and Vicky. Instead, she'd apparently decided to double down on her lies. That was fine with me. I'd been hoping she'd make that choice. I drove to the courthouse first thing in the morning and filed for divorce, citing adultery and abandonment. The clerk, a woman named Betty who'd worked there for 30 years, looked over my paperwork with professional interest. You've got quite a bit of documentation here, Mr. Reeves, she said. I believe in being thorough. This should be pretty straightforward given the evidence. Your wife's attorney will probably recommend she settle quickly, assuming she gets an attorney who's smarter than she is. I made copies of everything and had them served to Marla at Rhonda's house, where she was still staying. Then I drove to Peak Performance Physical Therapy. The parking lot was nearly empty, just Eli's BMW and a few other cars. I walked inside and asked to speak with the manager. "That would be Barbara Chen," the receptionist said. "Is this regarding treatment?" "It's regarding one of your therapists." 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Barbara Chen, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who looked like she'd seen every kind of workplace drama imaginable. "What can I do for you, Mr. Reeves?" I opened my folder and pulled out a formal complaint I'd typed up over the weekend. "I need to file a complaint against Eli Harmon for unprofessional conduct." She read through the complaint, her expression growing more serious with each page. "These are very serious allegations," she said finally. "They're also well documented." I handed her copies of the emails, photos, and hotel receipts. "Mr. Harmon has been conducting a relationship with my wife, who he initially met when she came here for legitimate physical therapy 6 months ago." Barbara studied the evidence carefully. "This appears to show a relationship, but how do I know it began while she was a patient here?" I pulled out Marla's medical records, which I'd gotten from our insurance company. She was treated here for lower back pain from January through March. The first email in that stack is dated February 15th. "I see." Barbara's voice had gone cold. "Mr. Harmon will need to be suspended pending a full investigation." "There's more." I handed her printouts of the state licensing board complaints I'd found. "He's got a pattern of this behavior." Barbara's jaw tightened. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. We'll handle it from here." I left the clinic feeling satisfied. Eli would be suspended by the end of the day and probably fired within a week. His professional reputation would be destroyed, and he'd likely lose his license. But I wasn't done yet. My next stop was Dorian and Associates, where Marla worked. I'd called ahead and made an appointment with Mr. Dorian himself, claiming I had important information about one of his employees. Harold Dorian was old school, probably in his 70s, wearing a 3-piece suit despite the casual atmosphere of most modern offices. He'd built his tax preparation business over 40 years and had a reputation for running a clean, professional operation. "Mr. Reeves," he said, shaking my hand. "Please, sit down. You said this was about your wife?" "It is. I'm afraid Marla's been using company resources for personal activities that reflect poorly on your firm." I showed him the emails that had been sent from Marla's work computer during work hours using the company's email system. Explicit messages to her lover, discussions of their affair, plans for hotel meetings. Mr. Dorian's face grew redder with each page he read. "This is completely unacceptable," he said. "We have strict policies about personal use of company equipment." "There's also the matter of her recent absences," I said. "She's been telling clients she's working late, when actually she's been meeting her boyfriend. That's fraud." "Indeed it is." Mr. Dorian was making notes. "I'll need to review this with our HR department, but I suspect Mrs. Reeves's employment here will be terminated immediately." "I thought you should know before word gets around town. I'd hate for your firm's reputation to be damaged by association." "I appreciate your discretion, Mr. Reeves, and I'm sorry for what you've been going through." 2 down. That afternoon, I drove to the construction site where Curtis and Dave worked. I found them during their lunch break, sitting on stacks of lumber and eating sandwiches. "Colt," Curtis said when he saw me. "How you holding up?" "Better than expected. I wanted to thank you guys for having my back the other night." "No problem. That was some bullshit Marla was trying to pull." I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made at the motel. Curtis and Dave listened in silence as Marla admitted she'd lied about the bruises. "Jesus Christ," Dave said when it was over. "She really tried to frame you." "She did more than try. She convinced half the town I was beating her." "What are you going to do with that recording?" "I'm going to make sure everyone who heard her lies hears the truth." I spent the rest of the afternoon making copies of the recording and delivering them to everyone who mattered. The guys at the hangar, Vicky, even some of Marla's friends who'd been giving me dirty looks around town. By evening, word was spreading fast. The truth has a way of traveling even faster than lies, especially when it's backed up by evidence. I was having dinner at the hangar when Rhonda burst through the door, looking like she'd been crying. She spotted me immediately and marched over to my table. "You bastard," she said. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've told the truth, something you might want to try sometime. Marla lost her job today. Eli's been suspended. Their lives are ruined. Their lives are ruined because of choices they made. I just made sure there were consequences for those choices." She's devastated. She's talking about leaving town. Good. Maybe she'll find someone in the next town who appreciates liars and cheaters. Rhonda slapped me across the face. The entire bar went silent. I stood up slowly, touching my cheek. "That was a mistake, Rhonda. Are you going to hit me back? Add assault to your list of crimes?" "I don't hit women, but I do press charges against people who assault me." I pulled out my phone and called 911. "Yes, I'd like to report an assault. The hangar bar on Route 9. A woman just slapped me in front of about 20 witnesses." Rhonda went pale. "You can't be serious." "Absolutely serious. You want to play games? Let's play games." The police arrived 10 minutes later. Officer Martinez, who I'd known since high school, took statements from me and several witnesses. Rhonda was cited for simple assault and escorted out of the bar. "Colt," Martinez said before leaving, "I heard about what happened with your wife. I'm sorry, man." "Thanks, Rico. Just glad the truth came out." "Yeah, well, be careful. This kind of thing can escalate quickly." He was right to warn me. The next morning, I found my truck's tires slashed and "abuser" spray painted across my garage door. But I was ready for that too. I'd installed security cameras around my property the week before, and they'd captured everything, including clear footage of Eli Harmon sneaking around my garage at 3 a.m. with a can of spray paint and a knife. I called the police again. This time, Eli was arrested for vandalism and destruction of property. The footage was clear enough that he couldn't deny it, and when they searched his car, they found the spray paint and knife. But the best part was what happened next. While Eli was being processed at the police station, his BMW was towed to the impound lot. And since I had a contract with the county to do mechanical work on seized vehicles, guess who got called to inspect it for evidence? That's right. Me. I found exactly what I was looking for in his glove compartment. A small digital camera with dozens of photos of Marla in compromising positions. Photos that had clearly been taken without her knowledge or consent. "Officer Martinez," I called out. "You might want to see this." The photos were evidence of voyeurism, a felony in our state. Eli's simple vandalism charge just became a much bigger problem, but I still wasn't done. That evening, I called a town meeting. It was my right as a taxpayer and resident, and given all the rumors that had been flying around, people were curious enough to show up. The meeting was held in the high school auditorium, and about 200 people attended, including Marla and what was left of her support network. I stood up at the podium and looked out at the crowd. "Most of you know me," I began. "I've lived in this town for 20 years. I've fixed your planes, worked on your cars, helped out when you needed it. I've never asked for anything in return except to be treated with basic respect." The auditorium was completely quiet. Over the past few weeks, my reputation has been attacked by lies and rumors. People I considered friends turned their backs on me based on false accusations. Tonight I want to set the record straight. I played the recording from the motel room over the auditorium's sound system. Marla's voice filled the space, admitting she'd lied about the bruises. When it was over, I continued. "I've never laid a hand on my wife. I've never threatened her, stalked her, or abused her in any way. What I did do was discover that she'd been having an affair for 6 months, and I took steps to protect myself financially and legally. I pulled out copies of the emails and held them up. These are just a few of the explicit messages my wife exchanged with her lover during their affair. They were sent from her work computer, during work hours, while she was supposed to be serving clients. The crowd was murmuring now. Her lover, Eli Harmon, has been suspended from his job for unprofessional conduct. He was arrested last night for vandalizing my property, and this morning, additional charges were filed against him for voyeurism, taking nude photos of women without their consent. Marla stood up from her seat. "Stop it!" she screamed. "Just stop it!" "The truth hurts, doesn't it?" I said into the microphone. "But lies hurt worse, and I'm done being hurt by your lies." She ran out of the auditorium, followed by Rhonda and a few other supporters, but most of the crowd stayed. "I'm not asking for sympathy," I continued. "I'm asking for fairness. Judge me by my actions, not by the lies of someone who got caught cheating and decided to destroy my reputation rather than admit her mistakes." When I finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. People I hadn't spoken to in weeks came up to shake my hand and apologize for doubting me. Curtis was one of the first to reach me. "Colt, I'm sorry. I should have trusted you." "We're good, Kurt. Just remember this the next time someone tries to destroy someone's reputation with lies." Vicky was crying when she hugged me. "I'm so proud of you." "It's not over yet," I said, "but we're getting close." The final confrontation came exactly 1 week later on a Friday night at the hangar. I was having a quiet drink with Curtis and Vicky, celebrating the fact that my reputation had been restored and my divorce was proceeding smoothly, when Marla and Eli walked in together. The entire bar went silent. Everyone knew what had happened by now: the arrests, the job losses, the public humiliation. Seeing them together was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. They walked up to my table, and I could see that both of them had been drinking. Heavily. Well, I said. "Look what the cat dragged in. Both of them." "You snake," Eli slurred. "You destroyed our lives." "You destroyed your own lives. I just made sure there were consequences." Marla was swaying on her feet. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing us suffer?" "I'm enjoying seeing justice served. There's a difference." "Justice?" Eli laughed bitterly. "You call this justice? I lost my license, my job, my reputation, all because you couldn't handle the fact that your wife found someone better." I stood up slowly. "Better? You mean someone who takes nude photos of women without permission? Someone who gets rough during closeness and leaves bruises? Someone who vandalizes property when he doesn't get his way?" "That's not who I am." "That's exactly who you are. You're a predator who preys on vulnerable women, and when you get caught, you blame everyone else." The bar was packed now, with everyone listening to every word. "And you," I said, turning to Marla. "You're even worse. You had a choice when this all started. You could have asked for a divorce like an adult. Instead, you chose to sneak around, lie, steal, and when you got caught, you tried to destroy my reputation with false accusations." "I never meant for it to go this far," Marla said, tears streaming down her face. "Bullshit. You meant every bit of it. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too. You wanted to keep the security of being married to me while getting your thrills with Dr. Feelgood here. That's not true. It's completely true. You kept our joint accounts open so you could pay for hotel rooms with my money. You used my credit cards to buy lingerie for your boyfriend. You lied to me, to your friends, to your boss, and to anyone else who would listen." I pulled out a thick manila envelope and set it on the table. "This contains copies of every email, every receipt, every photo, and every piece of evidence I've collected over the past 2 months. It's all going to be part of the divorce proceedings, which means it's all going to be public record." Marla's face went white. "You can't do that." "I can, and I will. You made this public when you started telling people I was abusing you. Now everyone gets to see the whole truth." Eli stepped forward, trying to look threatening despite the fact that he was drunk and swaying. "You think you've won. But this isn't over. Actually, it is over. You're done in this town. No one will hire you, no one will trust you, and no one will forget what you did. You might as well pack up and leave." And go where? You've destroyed my career. You destroyed your own career when you decided to sleep with your patients' wives. I just made sure people found out about it. Marla was sobbing now. I'm sorry, Colt. I'm so sorry. Can't we work this out? Work what out? You cheated on me for 6 months, lied about it, tried to frame me for domestic violence, and destroyed my reputation. What exactly is there to work out? I made mistakes. You made choices. Bad choices. And now you get to live with the consequences. The crowd in the bar was getting restless. I could hear people muttering, and the mood was definitely not sympathetic to Marla and Eli. You should leave, I said quietly. Both of you. Before this gets ugly. Is that a threat? Eli asked. It's advice. Look around. Count the people in this bar who are on your side. They looked around. The expressions they saw were not friendly. You turned this whole town against us, Marla said. I told this town the truth. You turned them against yourselves. Sal spoke up from behind the bar. I think it's time for you two to go. You're not welcome here. Other voices joined in. Yeah, get out. Nobody wants you here. Take your drama somewhere else. Marla and Eli looked around desperately, but there were no friendly faces. Even Rhonda, who had been Marla's strongest supporter, was nowhere to be seen. This isn't fair, Marla said. Fair? I laughed. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you asking for a divorce before you started sleeping around. Fair would have been you admitting your mistakes instead of lying about them. Fair would have been you taking responsibility for your actions instead of trying to destroy an innocent man's reputation. I stood up and addressed the entire bar. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to hear this. My wife, Marla Reeves, and her boyfriend, Eli Harmon, have spent the past 2 months trying to convince this town that I'm an abuser and a stalker. They've lied to your faces, manipulated your emotions, and tried to turn you against a man who has never done anything but help this community. The bar was completely silent now. The truth is simple. Marla cheated on me for 6 months. When I caught her, she decided to play victim rather than take responsibility. Eli Harmon used his position as a healthcare provider to seduce a vulnerable married woman, then got violent when things didn't go his way. I pulled out my phone and held it up. I have recordings of them admitting to their lies. I have photos of them together. I have evidence of financial fraud, professional misconduct, and criminal behavior. And all of it will be made public during the divorce proceedings. I looked directly at Marla and Eli. You wanted to destroy my reputation? Congratulations, you destroyed your own instead. The crowd started applauding, slowly at first, then building to a thunderous ovation that shook the windows. Marla was crying hysterically now. Please, Colt, please don't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. This is what you did to yourselves. Eli grabbed Marla's arm and started pulling her toward the door. Come on, we're leaving. Good idea, I called after them. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. As they reached the door, Eli turned back one last time. This isn't over, Reeves. Yes, it is, I said. You just don't know it yet. They left, and the bar erupted in celebration. People bought me drinks, slapped me on the back, and told me how proud they were that I'd stood up for myself. But I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I drove to the bus station downtown. I'd heard through the grapevine that Marla and Eli were planning to leave town together, starting fresh somewhere else. I found them in the waiting area, sitting with their suitcases, looking defeated and exhausted. Going somewhere? I asked. They looked up, startled. What do you want, Colt? Marla asked wearily. I want to make sure you understand something before you go. I sat down across from them. You're not starting fresh somewhere else. You're running away from the consequences of your actions, and those consequences are going to follow you wherever you go. What do you mean? Eli asked. I mean that your professional reputation is destroyed permanently. Every potential employer will find out about the licensing board complaints, the suspension, the criminal charges. You'll never work as a therapist again. Eli's face crumpled. And you, I said to Marla, will never get a job in accounting or tax preparation again. Word travels fast in professional circles. Everyone will know you committed fraud using company resources. You can't keep punishing us forever, Marla said. I'm not punishing you. I'm just making sure the truth follows you. You made your choices, now you get to live with them. I stood up to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Marla, the divorce papers will be finalized next week. You'll get nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, nothing. The prenup you signed 20 years ago is very clear about what happens in case of adultery. Her face went white. What prenup? I smiled. The one you signed when we got married. You were so eager to become Mrs. Reeves that you didn't read the fine print. Adultery voids everything. That's not possible. Check with your lawyer. Oh, wait, you can't afford a lawyer anymore. I walked away, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence.